Picture this. You've scrimped and saved for decades, finally bought your dream home, and then reality hits. Every single month you're writing checks that feel like rent payments to the government. Miss a few payments and they can take everything you've worked for. But what if I told you there are 5 states where homeowners are fighting back and some are winning big time? These aren't just tax breaks or temporary relief programs. We're talking about complete elimination of the taxes that make you feel like you're renting your own home from the government. The state ranked number 1 has stockpiled over $12 billion, and their new governor just announced the most aggressive plan any state has ever attempted. But before we get there, let's start with the state where the problem has reached crisis levels and lawmakers are finally saying enough is enough. Pennsylvania might look peaceful with its rolling farmland and historic stone houses, but beneath that charm lies a housing crisis nobody talks about. Every single year, over 10,000 families lose their homes. Not because they couldn't afford their mortgage payments, but because they couldn't keep up with property taxes that keep climbing no matter what. 10,000 families annually, and that number keeps growing. Here's what makes Pennsylvania different from other high-tax states. Nearly half of all school funding comes directly from property taxes, one of the highest percentages in the entire country. For decades, politicians said the same thing. Cut property taxes and you destroy public education. It became the excuse for doing nothing while families lost everything they'd worked for. But 2025 changed everything. 2 state legislators decided to stop making excuses and start making history. Senator Don Kiefer and Representative Wendy Frink introduced bills that don't just reduce property taxes for schools. They eliminate them completely and forever. House Bill 1649 and Senate Bill 962 represent the most comprehensive approach any state has taken to end the cycle of families losing homes to tax bills. Their replacement plan spreads the burden fairly. A modest 2% increase in sales tax combined with small local income taxes that everyone pays, not just homeowners. Senator Kiefer explained it perfectly when he said no one should be one life event away from losing their home. One job loss, one medical emergency, one bad year shouldn't mean joining those 10,000 families who lose everything. The bills are moving through committees right now, and support is building from families who have watched neighbors pack up and leave after decades in their communities. Pennsylvania is proving that even states with the most entrenched property tax systems can change when enough people demand it. Speaking of change, the next state has already spent more money on property tax relief than any state in American history. Over $50 billion in counting, but their governor says that's still not enough. Texas built its reputation on having no state income tax, which sounds fantastic until you open your first property tax bill. The average homeowner pays over $6,000 annually, and in some areas it's double that amount. All those people fleeing high-tax states like California and New York got a rude awakening when they discovered Texas just collects the money differently. Property taxes fund everything in Texas. Schools, roads, police, fire departments, all of it comes from what you pay on your home's assessed value. When housing values skyrocketed during the pandemic, so did everyone's tax bills. Suddenly, that affordable Texas dream became a financial nightmare for millions of homeowners. But Texas doesn't just complain about problems. They solve them with unprecedented action. In November, voters approved Proposition 13 with nearly 80% support. That's not a close election, that's a mandate from the people. Homestead exemptions jumped from $100,000 to $140,000. Senior citizens and disabled homeowners got even bigger breaks at $200,000. The numbers are staggering. Texas has now invested $51 billion in property tax relief over the past few years. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick announced that school property taxes have been cut by almost 50% for the average homeowner. No state in American history has ever committed that much money to helping homeowners. Governor Greg Abbott looked at $51 billion in relief and said it wasn't enough. His 2026 campaign platform includes a promise to eliminate school property taxes for homeowners entirely. Not reduce them, not cap them, eliminate them completely and let voters decide through a constitutional amendment. Abbott's reasoning is simple. Texans keep saying property taxes are too high, so let's finish the job once and for all. With $51 billion already invested and a booming economy generating massive budget surpluses, Texas has the resources to make elimination a reality. While Texas builds momentum gradually, our next state is taking a much more aggressive approach. Their governor has called property taxes a form of government rent, and he's pushing 7 different constitutional amendments to end what he considers an immoral system. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis doesn't mince words when talking about property taxes. He's repeatedly said that buying a home and paying off your mortgage should mean you actually own that property, not that you're renting it from the government forever. His administration has introduced the most comprehensive package of property tax reforms any state has ever attempted. 7 constitutional amendments and 1 major bill are moving through the Florida legislature right now. The biggest one, H.J.R. 20, would eliminate all non-school property taxes on primary residences starting January 1, 2027. Read that again. All non-school property taxes gone completely for homeowners living in their primary residence. DeSantis posted on social media that truly owning private property shouldn't mean perpetually paying rent to the government, and he's committed to reducing and ultimately eliminating property taxes for Florida homeowners. This isn't campaign rhetoric, it's active legislation with real deadlines and specific implementation dates. The challenge is massive. Property taxes generate over $14 billion annually for Florida's state and local governments. That money funds police departments, fire services, road maintenance, and dozens of other services people use every day. Eliminating that revenue stream means finding $14 billion somewhere else or cutting services dramatically. There's another complication nobody talks about publicly. Real estate analysts project that eliminating property taxes would increase Florida home values by 7 to 9% almost immediately. Great news if you already own a home, devastating news if you're trying to buy one. The very policy designed to help homeowners could price out the next generation of buyers. But Florida voters will get to decide for themselves. Constitutional amendments require 60% approval, not just a simple majority. That's a high bar, but Florida homeowners have supported property tax measures before when they see clear benefits and solid planning. The vote is scheduled for 2026, and it could make Florida the first state in American history to eliminate property taxes through direct democracy. Alternatively, voters might decide the risks outweigh the benefits and keep the current system with modifications. While Florida's battle plays out in government buildings, our next state proves you don't need politicians to start a revolution. You just need enough angry homeowners willing to knock on doors and collect signatures. Beth Blackar opened her property tax bill in Ohio and couldn't believe what she saw. Her home's assessed value had jumped 51.9% in a single year. Not over a decade, not gradually, but one massive increase that sent her tax bill through the roof. Her house didn't get bigger, her neighborhood didn't transform into Beverly Hills, but suddenly she owed hundreds more dollars annually. Instead of just complaining, Beth started talking to neighbors and discovered her experience wasn't unique. All across Ohio, homeowners were getting similar shocks when they opened their tax bills. Property values were being reassessed at rates that seemed completely disconnected from reality, and families were struggling to keep up with the increases. That frustration became Citizens for Property Tax Reform, a grassroots movement with one clear goal. Get a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would eliminate property taxes entirely and let Ohio voters decide directly. No politicians, no committees, no backroom deals. Just regular people collecting signatures and demanding change. To get their amendment on the ballot, they need 413,000 signatures from registered Ohio voters by July 1, 2025. Miss that deadline by even one signature and they have to start over completely. So far, they've collected over 100,000 signatures through pure volunteer effort. No professional signature gatherers, no massive advertising budget, just people standing outside grocery stores and knocking on doors. Governor DeWine and other state officials have been skeptical, pointing out that the amendment has no replacement funding mechanism. Critics call it reckless to eliminate billions in revenue without a clear plan for maintaining schools, police, and fire departments. One lawmaker described it as absolute chaos waiting to happen. But supporters argue that the current system is already chaotic for homeowners who can't predict or control their tax bills from year to year. They see property taxes as fundamentally immoral because they mean you never truly own your home, you're just renting it from the government with payments that can increase without warning. Ohio's movement proves that frustrated homeowners can challenge the system without waiting for permission from politicians. Whether they can collect enough signatures and convince 60% of voters remains to be seen, but they've already accomplished something remarkable by turning individual frustration into organized action. Our number one state has something none of the others possess. Not just a plan or political promises, but an actual pile of money specifically designated for this purpose. Over $11 billion and growing every year. North Dakota sits on one of the largest oil reserves in North America, and unlike other resource-rich states that spent their windfall immediately, North Dakota created the Legacy Fund. $11.5 billion built entirely from oil and gas tax revenue, designed to benefit future generations of North Dakotans. Last year alone, that fund generated over $600 million in earnings without touching the principal. Governor Kelly Armstrong took office in 2025 with a specific plan for using Legacy Fund earnings to eliminate property taxes gradually but permanently. He calls it the path to zero, and unlike other states that are still debating and planning, North Dakota is already implementing the first phases. Step 1 doubles the existing primary residence credit from $500 to $1,000 per homeowner. Step 2 adds another $550 directly from Legacy Fund earnings, putting $1,550 back in homeowners' pockets immediately. By 2027, the credit reaches at least $2,000 and continues growing from there. Armstrong's vision is elimination of property taxes for an entire class of homeowners within the next decade, funded entirely by oil revenue that keeps flowing regardless of economic conditions elsewhere. As the Legacy Fund grows, which it will as long as oil remains valuable, it covers more of the cost automatically. The genius of North Dakota's approach is sustainability. Other states are debating how to replace property tax revenue, but North Dakota already has the replacement revenue sitting in the bank earning interest. No need to raise other taxes, no need to cut essential services, no need to create economic chaos. For retirees like Pat and Julie Odell, who pay over $3,000 annually in property taxes on a fixed income, Armstrong's plan represents the difference between keeping their home and being forced to sell. Pat pointed out that many people are in much worse financial shape than his family, and property tax elimination would help the most vulnerable homeowners first. North Dakota voters rejected a different property tax elimination measure just last year by a 70-30 margin, but that proposal had no funding mechanism or replacement plan. Voters saw it as reckless and voted accordingly. Armstrong's plan is completely different because the money is already available and the implementation is gradual and measured. If any state eliminates property taxes first, it will likely be North Dakota. They have the funding, the political leadership, and a practical timeline that doesn't require economic miracles or massive tax increases elsewhere. The only question is how quickly they can scale up from credits to complete elimination. 5 states, 5 completely different approaches to the same fundamental problem. Pennsylvania is fighting an epidemic of families losing homes to tax bills they can't afford. Texas has already invested $51 billion and is planning even bigger moves. Florida is taking the question directly to voters through constitutional amendments. Ohio homeowners are bypassing politicians entirely and collecting signatures for their own ballot measure. And North Dakota is quietly using oil money to build the first sustainable property tax elimination program in American history. The question isn't whether some state will eliminate property taxes eventually. The question is which one gets there first and proves it can work without destroying essential services or creating economic chaos. Each of these 5 states is testing a different theory about how to make homeownership mean actual ownership instead of permanent government rent payments. Property taxes have been called the most hated tax in America, and these 5 states are proving that hatred can translate into real political action when enough people decide they've had enough. Whether through legislative action, voter initiatives, or resource windfalls, change is coming to how Americans pay for the privilege of living in homes they supposedly own.